All right, everybody. So now we've got to the point where we've blent a lot of that stuff out, and I'm going to be using this custom bent tool. This is one of my favorite tank tools when you're in a situation where the dent is closer to the filler tank, because that big curve that it has in there, it kind of just, see, it comes around and you can actually drag it back in towards the dent. It's got a big curve, kind of like a J there. And you can see here that to protect this filler tank, I'm going to put in a microfiber towel. I do know they make some plastic inserts for certain types of tanks. I'll tell you, I've been using a microfiber for a long time as a protectant, and I have not had a problem with bending the inside of a filler neck. Them things are ridiculous strong. And there's my pushing technique here. Again, we're going to pinpoint that crown. Now what I'm doing here, I'm looking at it and trying to find every single little hole that I have in there, essentially a little bitty low or a little bitty dot, and I'm going to pinpoint it and push every single one of them up through the top of that crown. I'm going to go through the front of the tank, the middle of the tank, but my main focus is going to be on that crown. Really got to tighten it up. I'm going to be doing some wet sanding there, just a little 2000 grit sanding in that specific location to tone down that hard line that was created in the paint. But essentially, I want it the best possible before I, go to that point to where we actually do that. So again, with your pushes, you're going to find that when you're pushing these little spots, it's going to create a big high all the way around the spot that you just pushed. So essentially, you want that big high so you can go in and control it with your knockdown. It's a lot like glue pulling. You're rarely ever going to glue pull something flush. You're always trying to pull it high. Because once you pull it high, you can use the control that you have with that hammer and knockdown and lay it down flush. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Little by little. And at this point, we're pushing with a decently sharp tool. It's a bullet tip. So we're going to use a decently sharp knockdown. Unless I see some wide, elongated crowns, at that point, we'll still get into the soft tip. It's all about the size of the crown that you're working on. If it seems like the peak of it is the size of what a soft tip would normally knock down, then you're going to use a soft tip. If it's a little bit sharp, like these little pushes that I'm putting in here, then your sharper tip is going to knock it down much, much better. You can see here I'm getting towards the back of the line here. And just trying to clean it up. I've went through the front area. I've kind of blent the front part of that out. And I'm really just seeing how far can my tool get back in there. Because even though we got a tool in there, I can't sweep it through this whole repair. And as a matter of fact, I'm about a ½ inch away from the very, very back of that line. So definitely going to have to do a lot more blending towards the back of the line. But it's hitting the main impact part. You can still see that low way back there at the back of the line that I'm talking about. But the part where the paint has been pinched up and that elongated line, I'm able to get to that. So that's what's important. Again, hammer and knockdown time. This is all focus on that line. It's definitely the busiest part of the repair right now. And really, I am just tightening it up and blending it out. Yep, got a low back there. That's the one. And again, I cannot get a tool back here. Trust me, I would have loved to just throw that tool in there and push it right up, but it was not happening. I'm going to go ahead and let this tab set up. This one's a quarter size Atlas. Definitely found these Atlas to be great pulling tabs in these situations. Anytime you see that second pull, you know that I peaked the metal. When you see that it pulled once and my slide hammer stopped and I got to pull it again, you know that the metal definitely pulled into a high at that point, because it only broke loose because it was peaked out as far as it would go. So it's not a huge high, not a big pull, but it's not low anymore. So now I have the control of my hammer and knockdown to get in there and just blend it out, feather it out. Little bitty taps. As you can see there, that little low came up real nice. You know, I'm just glad that that really tight pinch wasn't back in that area. That would have been pretty hard. Here you go. Here's an overall view of what it looks like here. In the overhead light, you can definitely see that little pinch. You can see a little bit of the line. We're still got to go in there and work on some of that. It's definitely at a point to where we're going to be doing a little bit of wet sanding and polishing. It's been grouped up nice and tight enough to where I want to see what happens once we wet sand and polish that line. I want to see how much the surrounding perimeter of that paint begins to smooth out. We definitely got the lower part pretty nice. We've just got to put all effort and all focus up here on that top line. Sometimes I'm amazed at how well tanks will sand out as well. I mean, they really, this is 2,000 grit sandpaper that's been used 2,000 times. And I always say that. I mean, it's like I feel like I got the same old piece of sandpaper I had 3 years ago or something. It really doesn't even feel like it has much grit to it anymore. It seems like I might as well be using a regular piece of paper. But it does its job. Go ahead and clean it up. And I'm going to do a little bit of hand polishing on this one. Definitely polishes out pretty nice. But this is going to give us a totally different view of this crown once we polish it out. It's going to kind of, it's not going to look so jagged. It's not going to look rough. It's going to look nice, and there you go. It doesn't seem as aggressive as what it was. And we're starting to see some hidden spots in it that needs tapped out. I'm looking at it from that straight-on view, that original view. Definitely got some little bitty lows in there that are going to need to be addressed. But my job now is to just try to reshape this back into the natural curve of the panel. Right around there is my big low. It's probably where it's the busiest, right in that spot. I mean, you can just tell immediately, though, a little bit of polishing and a little bit of 2,000 grit sanding. It just kind of changed the view that you have that. It doesn't look so tight and clustered together. Kind of opened it up, exposed the peak, and gave us a little something to work with. Now, if you notice, I only isolated my sanding and polishing on that spot. Did not feel the rest of it needed. I didn't need to go over the whole tank. So I just went into that spot, and as you can see here, I'm just kind of tapping it out. We are kind of creating a little bit of a elongated low here, but it's going to be much more soft and less aggressive than the lows that we had with the high peak in the center. Still got some high spots there. You know, this is my view right here. This is you looking through my eyes on this thing. I mean, this is literally how I look at it. Looks like we got a little bitty low there in the center. We're never exempt from doing finishing touches with glue pulling or doing finishing touches with hammer and knockdown. I literally just go back and forth throughout these repairs. It's like I'm breaking out the whole arsenal and using it to every bit of it to my advantage. And there we go. Pulled a high right up there on that nice sharp crowned area, and I'm just in there blending it out. Nice little view there of it as well. Got a little low back there on that back end, and that was from just knocking down that peak. It just took metal with it. You got a strong peak line, and you start to knock it down. That thing may be stronger than the metal that's around it, and it's gonna take some prisoners with it. It's gonna take a nice little surrounding group of metal. And as you can see here, though, we were able to pull that little group of metal right on up. Created a little high spot there. Now it's up to me with my hammer and knockdown to just lay it into the surrounding finish. Always doing knockdown work. And here you go. As you can see, you can definitely still see a little bit here and there. But I'll tell you, for a tank with a dent this big, it came out to my satisfaction. It came out to the customer's satisfaction. And if you look here, the natural reflection, it came out pretty darn decent. And I'm very happy with it. He was very happy with it. And we will go ahead and finish up this tutorial. I thank you for checking us out, and we will see you on the next one.